If you are in London and happen to visit the British Museum, you will see one of the few contemporary copies of an historic document, the Magna Carta, first declaration of the rights of the citizen. You may also visit Magna Carta Island, where almost 750 years ago, King John signed a document granting certain protections from royal oppression. These rights, extended and incorporated into British law, paralleled Britain's growth into a world empire, symbolized by her great queen, Victoria, and resulted in a system of democratic rule which has laid an indelible imprint upon Western culture. Here in these Houses of Parliament, free government with its Anglo-Saxon concept of justice for the individual was born. Government built on this basis, that man, by virtue of his existence, is endowed with a dignity of spirit that must not be violated. A system of government whose basic civil liberties were later incorporated into our own Constitution and Bill of Rights, upon which our own form of free government was founded, man as the beginning and end of the state. Not the state as an aggressive, all-powerful ruler, with the masses existing merely to serve its expansionist aims. These two systems of government, democracy and aggressive communism, are today in conflict throughout the world. The forces of the United States and the United Kingdom have fought together side by side through 2 world wars and Korea. Thousands of British soldiers are fighting in Malaya to defeat the Soviet master plan of world domination. As part of a mutual defense effort against communism, Great Britain has permitted us to build a number of air bases within its borders, with sufficient troops to support these bases. That is why you Americans in this audience may be stationed in or be on your way to Great Britain, and why it will pay you to understand the British better. Piccadilly Circus in London. As you stand there taking in the sights, this question may come to your mind. What quality is there about the people of this small island that has enabled them to exert so influential a force on the history of the world? Almost 50 million living on an island barely the size of Minnesota, mostly tradesmen, factory workers, shipbuilders, coal miners. These people, within the span of 4 centuries, able to build a commonwealth that encompasses 1/4 of the world's population, 1/4 of its entire land surface, an association of nations over which, as the saying goes, the sun never sets. What quality is there about this people that made it the leader in world commerce, the trade and banking mart of the world, so great a contributor to science and art, to civilization everywhere? Was it the island, separated from the continent of Europe by the English Channel, close enough for easy communication, but protected from invasion by European armies? Was it the land? With few natural resources, not too productive and limited in area, Britain had to look abroad for raw materials to satisfy its growing industrial prosperity. This began Britain's history as a great sea power, a nation of shipbuilders and tradesmen, with a merchant marine second to none, exploring the broad highways of the oceans, laying the foundations of the empire, earning profits by carrying cargoes to and from the ports of the world, bringing home food and raw materials for its rising industry of manufacture. Note the strategic location of the home base of the empire, with its lifelines of trade, at the very heart of the Earth's land surface, easy access to oceans. Britain's economy depends on her trade. Food and raw materials from nations of the Commonwealth and other countries paid for by exports of coal and manufactured goods. As long as these imports and exports remained in balance, the nation's economic health was assured. Then came 1914 and World War I. 4 long years of fighting, with great shipping losses, losses in domestic and overseas investments, the crushing financial burden of war, and most of all with Britain's tremendous casualties, over 500,000 dead. In the following years, Britain did her best to recover, to maintain her position as one of the world's leading powers. World War II brought even greater disaster. After the fall of their allies on the continent, Britain and member nations of the empire resisted the aggressor alone for 2 long years. Recall the days of the Blitz and Britain's courage. 60,000 civilians dead. Remember Coventry? Remember London? Row upon row of homes, nearly 4 million damaged or destroyed in a nation where a scarcity of housing already existed. Britain's industrial potential suffered. She lost 3 times as much as we in her capital investment. Her battlefield dead exceeded our own. But remember also, it was in these dark days that British science gave radar and other brilliant new weapons of war to the Allies. Pioneered in jet propulsion engines. Gave the world penicillin. Television. Cooperated with our scientists to produce the atomic bomb. War's end brought more austerity on top of 7 long years of tightened belts. Britain's national debt was proportionately nearly 40 times higher than our own. The people were exhausted after paying 53% of their war costs through taxes. All types of consumer goods became hard to get, while in America they were increasingly plentiful. But Britain's economy had suffered even greater stresses. It was getting harder and harder to keep exports in balance with imports. Britain had to export or die. But export where? Before the war, much of Britain's trade had been with her dominions. After the war, this had been cut in half. Take coal, for instance. For generations, the foundation of Britain's prosperity. In 1913, 94 million tons had been exported. In 1946, only 9 million tons. Britain strained to increase trade with us for desperately needed American dollars to rebuild her factories and homes, to pay for food and raw materials. But her manufactured goods had not yet been able to regain for Britain her place in the market from 2 of her best customers, the United States and Canada. War had forced these nations and many others to buy in new markets or to supply their own needs. Meanwhile, a new danger was beginning to loom. Aggressive communism breaking out of the borders of Soviet Russia, sweeping across Europe and Asia, threatening not only the future of England, but of all free nations. It was during this period that our Congress embarked on a new program, Marshall Aid to the exhausted nations of free Europe.